I've been away for a bit, but I am back on the Picard train. Talk about the latest episode called Surrender right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. You can tell probably by different background and whatnot. There are some changes in my life that have happened as far as having to rearrange the home. So that's why the Picard ones have not been coming. Doesn't mean I haven't stopped watching. I've watched every episode and I've loved every single thing that this season is doing. So I am now a little bit more at ease and I can get these out. They may not be on time just because work doesn't let me live. But I am going to definitely talk about, at least finish off Picard. Episode 8 is called Surrender, which sort of acts as a two-part piece to the episode before called Dominion, where we left our crew in a very bad way on the Titan. Vadic has taken over the helm of the Titan and has pretty much left them in a pretty bad way. Picard, Beverly, Jack, and Sydney are all in a part of the ship that is it's stranded. They are on their own. And so a trap that Picard had set, unfortunately, one of those great legacy traps that Picard always knows how to set, virtually worked against him. And Vadic was a step ahead and unfortunately got a hold of the Titan and is at the helm and is in the captain's chair and has a bunch of Starfleet folks held hostage. And she's just asking for Jack to come to the bridge because she needs him. And so she starts saying she's going to execute every single member of the Starfleet of the ship unless Jack brings himself to the bridge. So I'm going to, every 10 minutes, I'm going to kill somebody. Data / Lore is having a conundrum within himself again. And Lore is the one who sort of helped giving Vadic a little bit more control of the ship. He's the one who sort of power everything down. He's the bad one, if you will. And Data and Lore are having this back and forth in their brain a bit. We see a spot where Riker and Troy are kind of, Deanna and Troy are sort of rekindling and re-examining their relationship and what sort of has happened to them. She says that I noticed that you're not the same person you were when you left. Something is different. And Riker says, yeah, this mission has been harrowing. It has been bleak and it has changed me in a way that has made me appreciate and respect things more than I did before I left. There's a funny joke that one of the changelings that came to get her was him. And she's like, I kind of had a feeling it wasn't. And he's like, was he like me at all? And get into a whole thing like, yeah, he's not the same in bed, kind of joking. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you do have to go through, like, you're going to go through all of that with you. And because she can't read changelings, she just wasn't aware. So, but I think it was more of a joke. Anyway, they continue on and they're kind of deciding or trying to go back and forth on whether or not giving the code was the right thing to do to the changelings. They just bought them a little bit more time. They're like, well, I trust Picard that he's going to have one of those grand plans that he always does. He did. It just didn't work. So Jack has already once went to the bridge just to see what was going on and sees that Vadic has everybody held hostage. And he informs his parents that he has an ability to get to the bridge by channeling his power and channeling himself to them and taking over their brain. And they're like, wait, are you crazy? Like, have you been hit in the head? And they're like, no, but Sydney backs him up. In the last episode, he used Sydney to be a vessel for his fighting style so that Sydney can get out of the situation she was in. And they're like, all right, well then, every superior officer has a code to sort of reboot and reset the system. So if you can get access to the to the screen, I can get you that. So Jack mind melds to an officer that is close to a monitor and kind of does it on the sly and puts the code in, but unfortunately Vadic sees it before they're able to execute the order. And she calls Jack out. She's like, I know you're in there. And so she is fully aware of Jack's abilities and powers, even though Jack may not be. And he goes back when he returns back and she's like, she knows my powers. At that point, 10 minutes are up and Vadic has a point to prove. So she kills an officer. It's not the officer that Jack mind melded to. She's kind of keeping everybody on their feet. 7 or 9 has tried to step in. It's like, take me. And she's like, no. you don't get to choose that. I'm gonna do this. And so she keeps you on your shows, but she does unfortunately assassinate one of the Starfleet members of this crew. We go back to Deanna and Riker, still held captive of a Shrike, and they're having a communication that about their personal relationship, and that Riker just left them. And he said, and this is something that I always feel like Deanna being the healer and the person that can kind of affect people's emotions. He said that you did me a disservice by dulling the pain. Like, I needed to feel the pain of our loss of our kid, but you went in and made it dull for me because you didn't want to see me in pain because you were in pain. And so, but I have to get to the grief. Like, this is something where grief has to go. You have to go through steps of it. You have to be sad. You have to be happy. You have to be angry. You have to feel all of that to get to the healing part of it. And what Deanna was trying to do was just skip those steps and get right to the healing, and thus created a more muted and dull Riker, and a kind of a not himself. And they're sort of coming to that point where they're like, I apologize. They're both sort of taking the flag and saying, yeah, I had some mess in the way that we are right now. They also have come to the conclusion that they hated the country where they were at. They're like, I know I want the city life. And they're like, why are we here? And because they sort of had gotten into this routine and they were doing it for their kids, that's sort of where they put them. But they also come to the conclusion that they needed to be put into that world to realize how much they love the city. And that's where I think they're going to go. At that point, Worf comes in and rescues them. It has a pretty funny dialogue with Deanna to confess how much he's missed her. You know how Worf is always hit on Troy, but it comes off more of like, hey, I appreciate you. I am now a more Zen-like person because of you. And Riker's like, can we just move on? Picard is trying to do something dangerous now. He goes up to Geordi and is like, hey, Geordi, we may need to remove the partition that is protecting that data from getting overrun by lore. And just hope that Data is doing well enough to overtake him. Like, we're protecting Data, but maybe we should unleash it so that Data can kind of just run. Geordi's like, I don't think Data's strong enough to do this. If we do this, we can lose Data again forever. Picard's like, well, that's an option that we're going to have to take. So they remove the partition, and then we see a sequence of Data and lore going back and forth inside of Data's matrix. While that is occurring, Jack is planning to buy them a bit of a time. And so he goes to the bridge and surrenders himself to Vadic, but also has a weapon, an unknown weapon, because the ship calls it out. It's like an unknown weapon that he has in his hand that he's ready to throw at a moment's notice. And Vadic completely says, like, how do you know that that's going to affect me? He's like, I don't know if it affects you, but I know it'll hurt me, and I'm who you want. So Vadic kind of has to stand down just a bit, and does buy them enough time for Data and Lore to figure out their situation. Worf, Riker, and Deanna meet Rafi, also in the Shrike, and they're examining the body of Picard that's there. And they've decided that a piece of the brain of that body has been removed. The aromatic syndrome piece of it has been taken out. And they still don't quite understand what it is that they want with Picard's body, but they do see that they have taken the bad stuff out and are now trying to work with a perfect specimen of Picard, which they are still unclear as to why they want Picard or do they need them both? Do they need one or the other? It is still at this point very unclear. Vadic allows most of Starfleet, the crew members, to kind of go to like leave the bridge, except for Seven. Seven chooses to stay behind, and then Jack and her have a conversation, and she gives a little bit about who he is, and kind of like lets you know, like, have you gone to the red door? Go to the red door. You need to open that red door, and like she's fully aware of his powers, and like, you don't know the gifts that you have. They discuss the Great Link, and there's a bigger tie to who he is than we sort of get to learn in this episode, because while that is going on, Data and Lore are going back and forth. And what Data is doing in the Matrix is he's smartly starting to give up pieces that remind him of himself, that keep his memory alive. The Sherlock Holmes pipe, the doll, like anything that sort of keeps Data and gives him memories, he's giving them up and basically sort of self-sacrificing. He's surrendering himself to Lore. But in doing so, Lore then just becomes Data. Like, all of those, like, he's keeping those mementos. He wants them so much to have a piece of Data. Now he's just keeping them, and he ends up just becoming Data. And so now they become one, and Data has now sort of taken over that entire matrix. Then he gets back to the real world, if you will. And he returns the lights back on, and he allows Raffi and Worf and them to take a shuttle and board the Titan. And then Worf comes in and starts cleaning house a little bit. And actually, Raffi does. Raffi comes in and starts cleaning house a little bit. And then Data opens the emergency hatch in the bridge. And what that does is that Jack immediately goes over to Seven, and what he has is actually a shield. The shield is a gravitational shield that keeps them in place, and then the hatch opens, and Vatic and the three other members, actually my two other members that were on the bridge, fly out of the back hatch, and it opens up, and they just start floating into space. And they float into space. Vatic freezes because obviously space is not something for any person. And then she hits the strike and just shatters into a million pieces. They close the emergency hatch, takes the shield off, and then they return the con back to Shaw, who comes back in with the rest of the crew, and then they fire on the strike and blow it up, and the strike is gone. So what we've gone through this season has done a good job of, like, yes, it's all one big through line, but it's had pieces. The story about the strike and Vatic is now done, and we're moving on to what is supposed to be probably the final piece of this. What the hell is Jack, and what's behind that red door, and who has this big overall plan, and how do we stop this for Federation, for Starfleet Day, and how does Picard tie into all of this? It's a cute little moment that occurs between Data and Geordi, because they're best friends forever. But Data's out here using contractions and starting to throw humor around it, and words like "you change," and Data's like, "This is the new me," and I kind of like this. But like, even in this being the new me, Geordi asks, "How do you feel?" And Data responds, "I feel now," and that's awesome. And the two of them now get to kind of go back and reform the bond they used to have all those years ago. Data and Geordi go to a room where the rest of our TNG cast is. And for the first time this season, we have them all there. Bev's there, Worf's there, Data's there, Geordi, Picard, Riker, and Deanna, and we're all around a table, and they kind of reminisce, like, oh, well, we haven't all been around a table like this in quite some time. Picard goes to Data and kind of asks him, like, hey, look, the last time that I saw you, you were seeking death. You were hoping to feel death and let that feel. I hope that us bringing you back did not sully that for you or ruin that moment for you. And Data was like, no, I got to feel that. I felt what that is. But I would not trade that moment for this at all. Being here with all of you, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world than right here. So that gives Picard a little bit of solace, because he sort of broke a promise to a friend to get himself out of this jam. So then they start discussing that whatever they have planned for Frontier Day is still happening, and it's just hours away. Because at that point, the Deanna starts talking mess about Beverly and Picard's boy. But she lets him know, like, look, there's a darkness. When I came on this ship, I felt a darkness. And in this, I felt a darkness is in your boy. It's not a part of your boy. Like, it's not who your boy is, but there's something that has attached himself to your kid, to Jack. Something is passing through him, and I don't know what that is. And Beverly even says, like, there's something wrong that I've never seen before. And so Deanna's like, well, I think it's high time that I meet your son. So Deanna meets Jack, and she says, normally that I let a patient who's having a problem come to me, but I think you and I both can agree that in this moment, things have escalated. So I think we need to go ahead and rush that part. I'm just going to take over. And Jack's like, okay, let's do this. He's frightened. He's freaked out. But she asks him, have you seen the red door? And he's like, I have. And she asks, have you gone through? And he's like, I have not. I'm too frightened to do so. He's like, well, let's do that together. So then we see the two of them in that scenario, that dream sequence, about to open the door, and then we go to black, and that is the episode. A good two-parter with Dominion and Surrender. I like these two episodes. I like this season as a whole. This has just been an excellent season. I think from those who sat with Picard season 1 and season 2, there are pieces of that you did like, and then pieces of it that you wish you could throw away. This season as a whole has been really good for me. I think the one character that I like the least has been put sideline for a lot of this. Raffi I have not seen much of, so she has not messed up the episodes for me. But as a whole, just seeing the Next Generation cast together, and then seeing some of the legacy characters with them, like Sydney, parts of that, the Jack parts of that, I think even when this ends, because this is the last season, I feel like we have put some seeds in to sort of continue this on. I would even like to see what Captain Shaw continues to do. Like, I know there's rumblings of that. Sure. I like him enough. Like, he's not been enough of a dick, and everything that he has done to be antagonistic comes from a place of understanding. Like, his whole story that he had with Picard being Borg and him having to go through it. I get why he is the way that he is with Picard, but he is starting to open up and starting to trust. I like him as a whole, as a character. We got 2 more episodes left, and I'm excited. We're going to kind of get into the back half of the Frontier Day to get the connection of who Jack truly is, or what is trying to possess Jack. And what that is, I don't know. I feel like we've had a lot of ties to Deep Space Nine. We get to see characters from we got to see characters from Voyager. It's been a good time. This is the sort of the greatest hits. It's funny because this is a great story that's happening. There is a greatest hits scenario happening where we're going through the best of the best that's ever sort of existed in TNG, DS9, and Voyager. But it all feels earned. It all feels like we got here. And so whatever conclusion we get on the last episode, which I looked ahead, it's called The Last Generation. It'll be, I think, worthwhile. And I'm excited to see what we get for the future of Star Trek as some of these shows are starting to end. What's coming next? What did you guys think about this episode of Picard called Surrender? Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. It's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. I will be doing the next 2 episodes. So Hell or High Water may be a little late, but they will be coming. So episode 9 and episode 10, I will be talking about. So sorry, I missed a few in the middle there, but I'm back. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.